You have these wings, AOC and her group on one side.
It's like 5 people.
During an interview with Leslie Stahl on 60 Minutes, Nancy Pelosi once again maligned progressive Democrats. So I'm going to show you this clip, and I'm going to have to debunk, again, the same BS narrative that continues to be pumped out of these corporate Democrats. And I also have to debunk the stupid questions that Nancy Pelosi was also given here. So watch the clip, and I'll come back and break this all down.
So you are contending with a group in Congress. Over here on the left flank are these self-described socialists. On the right, these moderates. And you yourself said that you're the only one who can unify everybody. And the question is, can you?
By and large, whatever orientation they came to Congress with, they know that we have to hold the center, that we have to go down the mainstream.
They know that?
They do.
But it doesn't look like that. It looks as if it's fractured. She likes to minimize the conflicts within her caucus between the moderates and the progressives. You have these wings, AOC and her group on one side.
It's like 5 people.
No, it's the progressive group. It's more than 5.
I'm a progressive.
All right. Nancy Pelosi is so completely out of touch. And it's really a combination of things. She's completely out of touch, but she is also completely consumed by her big donors, by her corporate donors. That is the actual disagreement here. So first, let me start with Leslie Stahl. So Leslie Stahl, during her questions, she says a couple of dumb things that really don't frame these questions properly. So she says here, quote, self-described socialists talking about, or apparently trying to talk about, AOC and other Justice Democrats like Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. The only one of those, okay, maybe I'm wrong here. As far as I've seen, only AOC has considered herself to be a democratic socialist. So again, first of all, we're talking about democratic socialists versus socialists. The reason for that distinction is to separate the idea of authoritarian socialism from democratic socialism. So when AOC is talking about democratic socialism, she doesn't want people to think about authoritarian socialism. That is why that distinction is made. We're talking about socialism within a democracy. Now, again, I've only seen AOC consider herself to be a democratic socialist. Maybe Ilhan Omar, maybe Rashida Tlaib has said this. I haven't seen it. I could be wrong. But again, we're talking about democratic socialism. Leslie Stahl also says, when asking Nancy Pelosi about unifying, can you unify the party? I hate this question because it doesn't set the terms of what that means. Unify behind what? Unify behind what corporate donors want, or unify behind what the American people want? Because as I'm about to show you, there is a massive difference. What Washington, the unifying within Washington, D.C. is behind the donors. When you look at these national level politicians, they answer to their big donors. When you look at what the American people actually want in terms of look at polling, what they actually want, they want something much, much different than what the party wants, than what DC wants. So you have to be able to define what the actual conversation is about, because this unification thing always talks about, it always appears to be about, oh yeah, we have to unify the Democratic Party, which for some reason defaults behind corporate Democrats. But why can't unify mean fall in line behind what progressives want, which is what the vast majority of Americans actually want, which again, I'm going to show you that. Now, Pelosi, so kind of an offshoot of what I was just talking about. Pelosi here saying that we have to hold the center. Again, what is the center? The center of Washington, D.C., the center of where corporate money completely controls politics, or the center of the American people? So let me show you the massive difference here. So medicare-for-all, which is not at all supported by the majority of Democrats or the majority of politicians in Washington, obviously. Medicare for all, looked at as a very far left idea, oh, definitely not in the center, is actually an incredibly moderate proposal when you look at what the American people actually want. So here's the data. The vast majority of Americans, 70%, now support Medicare for all, otherwise known as single-payer health care, according to a new Reuters survey. That includes 85% of Democrats and 52% of Republicans. Only 20% of Americans say they outright oppose the idea. So, on the question of Medicare for all, where AOC and these other progressive Democrats are called crazy because they support Medicare for all, oh, that's too far left, 70% of Americans support it. And look, you can look at other polls. It's very similar to this. The majority of Americans support Medicare for all. They support a universal health care plan. Now let's go to tax rates. So AOC's idea of having the highest marginal tax rate at 70%, so any money made over $10 million a year should be taxed at 70%. That's one of the ideas that AOC has raised and was called, oh, crazy left. Oh, just an insane idea. Can't possibly do that. It's way too crazy. But when you actually poll the American people, it's not crazy. It's supported by the vast majority of Americans. So looking at this poll from The Hill and Harris X, 59% support from registered voters for raising the highest tax rate to 70%. Now, the question here isn't even framed perfectly. I mean, look again at this question. Would you support raising the highest tax rate to 70%? That doesn't really define what the actual proposal is. The idea of taxing 70% on any money made over $10 million. And even still, even without that, even with this imperfect framing, 59% of Americans still support this. Now, if you actually properly ask this question with the right details, it's very likely that would be even higher for support. Now, let's look at another issue, money in politics. This one, I think, speaks for itself. I would hope anybody watching this video, unless you're a lobbyist or a billionaire yourself, you understand and want to do something about the effect of money in politics, corporate money and wealthy donors impacting politics. And when we look at what people want out of a Supreme Court pick, this story from last year, poll, voters want Trump's Supreme Court pick to limit corporate money in politics, not abortion. Abortion may be dominating the headlines, but voters thinking about Trump's potential Supreme Court pick care more about Citizens United, a new Daily Beast/Ipsos poll finds. By overwhelming majorities, voters in each political party said they opposed the Supreme Court's 2010 Citizens United decision to allow businesses and corporations to spend without limit on political campaigns. In all, 64% of respondents said they wanted Trump to pick a Supreme Court nominee who would, quote, limit the amount of money corporations and unions can spend on political campaigns. That included 70% of Democrats and a remarkable 67% of Republicans, alongside 60% of independents. Just 24% of all respondents said they did not want a Supreme Court nominee to curb that right. Now, this is another issue that is not a main topic of discussion, and it should be. So you have this, I mean, go back in time to when the Supreme Court, when this whole discussion was going on. Nobody in the mainstream press was talking about how the majority of Americans want a Supreme Court pick to curb money in politics. Nobody was having that discussion. Nobody in media, nobody in the Democratic Party, except for some progressives, nobody was talking about this issue. But the vast majority of Americans, the majority of Democrats and Republicans, want a Supreme Court pick that will curb money in politics. But this is not a discussion. This is not what you're hearing from Nancy Pelosi, let alone what you're hearing from Republicans. But again, this shows you the difference here. This shows you what the center actually is. The center of the country wants to raise taxes on the richest. The center of the country wants to get money out of politics. The center of the country wants Medicare for all. That's what the center of the country is. But when Nancy Pelosi talks about the center or unifying the party, she's talking about unifying behind a message that is acceptable to her corporate donors. Now, I also I want to show this clip. So I did a video on this clip, I think it was last month or 2 months ago, where CNN has this this regular interview with these bunch of Democratic voters to ask them how they feel about certain Democratic issues. And one of the questions that came up was about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, you didn't see the rest of this panel, but let me tell you, these are not all progressives on this panel. These voters are, I think, only 2 of them on here support Bernie for 2020. The rest of them support very moderate Democrats for 2020. But when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez came up, this is how they reacted.
One more question for you guys. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, your thoughts?
She's badass.
Man,
oh my
fantastic.
God.
Yay.
I love
yes.
her.
Wow. What a woman.
Amazing. And
again.
Yes. I mean, she's asking the right questions. I don't feel like she's playing games. I'm so excited about her. She is smart, she is intelligent, and I cannot wait to see what else she does.
Well, I know she's got the Democratic Party nervous, and I mean, in a way, they should be nervous because she does represent the new guard, the new generation. I think she really kind of personifies, where we expected things to go down the line.
She is the candidate of the future. She has got this down pat, and she has also nailed it. And as a woman in a male-dominated field, this is how women in the male-dominated fields, we have to work like this all the time. She is the candidate of the future. Get ready for her because she's coming.
Look at how giddy they are about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. This is who Nancy Pelosi is trying to silence. Nancy Pelosi does not care about Democratic voters. That's not what she's protecting. She doesn't care what's best for the people. She doesn't care, not even really about winning. Nancy Pelosi, her only purpose here is to protect big Democratic donors and Democratic consultants. That's her entire job. That's what she does. So don't fall for this BS you hear in the media at large, in mainstream press, about how Nancy Pelosi is this amazing Democrat, this progressive Democrat that's working for the people. It's all complete BS. All you have to do is look at the actual facts. Nancy Pelosi does not push any progressive ideas. She doesn't push Medicare-for-all. She's actively working against Medicare-for-all. She's not trying to raise taxes to 70% on the wealthy. She does the opposite. She supports the opposite. Nancy Pelosi is the opposite of a progressive, yet she calls herself in this interview a progressive. I don't even know how she defines that word, but I mean, just look at the information, look at the data, look at what the vast majority of Americans support, and look at where Nancy Pelosi is. Nancy Pelosi is to the right. Nancy Pelosi, when you look at the actual issues and what the American people support, Nancy Pelosi is a right-winger. Now, that line will shock, especially conservatives. Oh my God, Nancy Pelosi, you're right-winger. Oh, you're crazy. Look at the actual polling. It's obvious that Nancy Pelosi is a right-winger. Her entire job is to protect the wealthy. And all you have to do, I mean, look at Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton was the perfect Pelosi-style Democrat, and she lost to Donald Trump. So that strategy of corporate Democrats failed in 2016. Yet they continue trying to revive it and fight for that, even though it is dead. That is a dead strategy. So why would they be doing that? They're only doing that to protect their donors and their consultants. They do not care about what's best for the people, and they also don't even care about winning.